We're back, baby! Hello friends, Dimitri here. The quality and stability of your internet connection at home depends on many things. Maybe a weak Wi-Fi signal due to placement of the router, maybe neighbor's Wi-Fi oversaturating the limited airspace. What gets overlooked 99% of the time is the router itself. Today I want to talk to you about common issues with ISP provided routers, how to work around them, and the benefits of building your own, like not having to rent one, for example. Wait, what? Oh, those fuckers! When you sign up for broadband, a tech will come out to activate the service. They'll check the existing cabling, probably run some new wires, maybe drill a couple of new holes, then hook up the router, make sure it's working, and call it a day. Connecting the rest of your devices is up to you. They do try to make that part easy for anyone, so the Wi-Fi network name and password are preset and usually printed on a sticker at the bottom of the router itself. The router is configured for general use case, and technicians can remotely connect to it to diagnose problems when you call tech support. This convenience cuts down on support calls, but it also greatly lowers security. Weak default passwords that majority of customers will never change are an easy target.
So the combination is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's the stupidest combination I ever heard in my life!
Your router is also not just a modem connecting it to the internet. It likely has several Ethernet ports on the back for multiple wired devices, and it has built-in wireless capabilities, along with some rudimentary web-based management interface. In essence, it's a 4-in-1 device that functions as a modem, a switch, an access point, and a firewall. They do this for several reasons. First one is ease of use. 99.9% of households are not tech-savvy at all, and simply don't have the knowledge required to set up their own home network beyond what the ISP gave them. Back in the day, when the one computer at home was the only device needing internet access, this wasn't an issue. The modem hooked up directly to the PC or was an add-on card slotted into it, and there was no need for any other equipment. Nowadays, it feels like everything else in our homes wants to be connected to the internet at all times. Laptops, cell phones, TVs, streaming dongles, gaming consoles, exercise bikes, smartwatches, earbuds. Hell, even fridges and dishwashers now have smarts that require an always-on connection. The amount of computing devices in households keep increasing, so ISPs worked to remove that particular point of friction in the adoption of home broadband by bundling Wi-Fi into every router since probably around early 2000s. Pretty soon they realized that the routers are entry points into our homes, and since the management of the router is handled by them, they have the ability to restrict what we can do with our internet connections. Advanced configuration options such as forwarding ports, for example, are either completely missing or are heavily limited in functionality, which makes it so much harder to, for example, self-host a website or another service. Even when they do allow changing those settings, they require logging into their online portals. Why? The freaking thing is right there. I should be able to hook directly into it with a wire. The routers, being the de facto gatekeepers, also allows ISPs to snoop on all of your internet traffic, which they use to build a profile of your browsing and shopping habits. And then they turn around and sell it to whoever is willing to pay for it. Also, many ISPs use part of the bandwidth that they sold you to implement public Wi-Fi networks, meaning your router is part of a large network of other routers in the neighborhood that allows ISP subscribers walking past your home to get online at your expense. ISPs go out of their way to make it extremely difficult or even impossible to disable this feature because it is one of the selling points of their service. In most of the United States, you don't have much choice when it comes to providers offering high-speed broadband internet access. Because of very limited competition in the space, if you are very lucky, your area may be serviced by 2 or more companies. For the majority of households though, the choice is exactly one, if any at all. Well, there's still dial-up if you're feeling masochistic and still have a telephone line in the current year. No competition means there is no incentive for ISPs to make their service stand out, so innovation stagnates, and at the same time, prices for same or worse service go up for no reason other than "fuck you, that's why." I mean, in places where ISPs are forced to compete against each other for customers, there have been major improvements. Verizon and Optimum offer speeds of 2, 5, and even 8 gigabits per second on their fiber optic networks, and if you happen to live in an area serviced by both, your prices might be even lower than some of their older services running over coaxial cables. In my current house, Optimum Fiber offers 1 gigabit per second service at $75 a month for the first couple of years. Then it jumps to $90 and goes all the way up to $130 when the promotional discounts expire. Verizon Fios is a competing service in my area that charges a $75 flat fee for the same speed tier. The prices don't go up later, and they don't require any equipment rentals if you have your own. Unfortunately for me, it's not available on half of my block for some reason. The apartment building literally across the street from me has it, but not our row of homes. I digress. The point is, there is no reason for ISPs to give us faster connections or cheaper services or better routers because they have no incentive to do that. Well, let's wrestle some of that control back. I may not be able to get rid of that rent line item on my internet bill quite yet, but I can at least bypass some of the restrictions and harden my security by building my own router while I'm at it. What's a router anyway if not a computer with the sole purpose of grabbing the signal from the ISP and sharing it across your home network? We're gonna have to keep the ISP's router, for now, to act as the modem, but we'll need to replace the rest of its features with our own equipment. Let's talk hardware requirements. We'll need a computer that'll be a firewall, and it'll sit between the ISP's router and the rest of the home network. We'll also need a network switch and at least one Wi-Fi access point. Maybe more than one, depending on how well the signal covers our living space. Switch and access point are easy. Both can be had for under $50 each, if you don't mind no-name brands. Don't run out and buy a new PC just yet though. If an ISP can squeeze in a modem, a switch, and a Wi-Fi antenna into this small box, how powerful of a PC do we really need? Not that powerful after all. In fact, any CPU from the past 15 years will be more than sufficient. Well, maybe not from the early 2000s. Wait, 15 years ago is 2010s. Fuck! If you're not a hoarder who has ancient PCs just sitting in a closet somewhere, you can pick one up on eBay for $50 to $70. An older Dell Optiplex is perfect for this, and there's plenty of them that are being recycled by businesses that are upgrading to newer models. It'll come with the majority of hardware we need: a case with a power supply, motherboard, CPU, some RAM. We do need a different network interface card or NIC. Those old PCs usually have a single networking port built right into the motherboard, but we need two ports, one for the incoming signal for the ISP modem and the other outgoing to our home network. A half-decent dual-port adapter will set us back around $40 or so. Just do some research before buying based on what PC you end up getting, because some of the small factor PCs may require either a low-profile bracket or even a riser cable to fit it into the case. In terms of storage, anything over 50 gigabytes is a total overkill. I wouldn't recommend a hard disk drive because those are slow, but any old SATA SSD will do. Even with today's inflated prices, you can still buy a small used SSD for around 20 bucks. For memory, whatever came with the PC, usually 8 to 12 gigabytes, is plenty. To sum it up, we spent $70 for the PC, $40 for the network card, $20 for SSD, another $40 for basic switch, and a $60 for half-decent access point. Let's call it $250. For my router replacement, I went slightly overboard. First, I wanted it to live in my rack, so the chassis with a power supply and a motherboard alone cost me over $110. Plus another $40 for the server rails, and the case is super thin, so I needed a special slim CPU cooler for additional $30. For CPU, I chose a Xeon processor because it has built-in cryptographic features for faster encryption, which is very useful for VPN software that I plan to use. But it's completely optional. Besides, the chip itself was only like 10 bucks anyway. For storage, I went with a couple of super cheap and very low capacity SATA flash modules that I configured in full redundancy mode. They're only 16 GB each, but they cost me only $17 for the pair. For the network card, I went with an IBM adapter model i340T2, which I found many recommendations for. It was $25 plus another $13 for the riser cable since it has to fit in sideways in the case. Finally, I got a single stick of 4 GB of error-correcting RAM for $7. All in, this machine cost me $250. If I was on a tighter budget and didn't care about rack mounting the thing, I could have easily spent half the price of this monster that I built. There are many good choices for operating system to install on your newly built router. Some are developed by for-profit companies, others are maintained by volunteer community members who donate their time and effort to develop new features and fix bugs. Examples are DDWRT, OpenWRT, ClearOS, pfSense, OpenSense, IPFire, and many others. In the end, I chose pfSense, mostly because it has a larger community and more extensive documentation. Installing the OS is pretty straightforward. You download a package from their website, use a utility like Rufus to write it to a USB key, and use that key to boot the PC you've built and follow on-screen directions. It will prompt you for most of the important things, like where to install it, what features to enable, even when to connect which network cable. The basic configuration is also not too complicated. There is a handful of things that you absolutely must have. A DHCP server to hand out addresses to other devices on the network, and a firewall for blocking inbound connections and open the ports when you need to. For everything else, there is a lot of documentation and help articles online, as well as a ton of video guides and walkthroughs on YouTube. I recommend finding a fairly recent video guide and just following it closely. After everything is installed, here comes the hard part: calling your ISP and having them place their router into what's called a bridge mode. Basically a pass-through so that our own router can begin doing all the heavy lifting. It can take a few calls, trying to get a customer service rep who knows what the hell we're even talking about. They're usually trained to just read off troubleshooting steps from some script.
Hello, IT, have you tried turning it off and on again?
It took me 3 calls to finally get connected to the proper tech channel with a rep who was able to make the necessary changes on their end. Once everything is configured and your home network is able to access the internet, we can stop right there. Our own firewall is leaps and bounds better than whatever outdated crap the ISP shipped with their modem. But that's just the start of our networking journey. pfSense, or any other router OS you choose, provides a metric ton of options and customizations. For example, you can separate your internet-enabled appliances into their own little island that has no access to any of your other computers or phones. Or you can choose to deny them internet access altogether. This not only protects your privacy, but also hardens security, because these Internet of Things devices ship with minimal security, if any at all, and are prime targets for hackers to gain access into your entire home network.
Don't tell me your password was password, Jamie.
To be fair, I did think I'd fallen because I spelt it with 2 S's.
You can also host your own services like photo sharing or document collaboration or even game servers, and use advanced port forwarding rules to securely expose these services to the wider internet. Combine that with a dynamic DNS and a cheap domain name registration, and you now have an address that points to your services. You can also set up your own encrypted virtual private network, or VPN for short, for securely connecting into your home network from outside. The router is also a great point of entry for setting up network-wide ad blocking. This way you don't have to install blockers on each device or browser app separately. Plus, it will work even on apps that don't natively support this feature. These are just some of the examples of what can be accomplished. Owning your router opens up many options that ISPs either don't implement at all or actively prevent you from using. Back to the costs. On my bill, the rent for the modem is $14 per month. If it wasn't mandatory, replacing it with a self-built solution would have paid for itself in just under a year and a half. My ISP doesn't even allow me to buy their crappy router outright, which I'm more than willing to do because, once again, even if they charged me $300 for it, even though it's totally not worth it, it would have paid for itself by now 2 years later. I can't be the only one who is pissed off about this, right? I started digging around, and apparently there are ways to completely bypass the ISP's modem. It's not for the faint of heart though, and only the savviest of enthusiasts should even begin to attempt it. It requires specialized hardware modules, a lot of tinkering in the command line, firmware flashing, all for the purpose of basically tricking the ISP into thinking that their modem is still in the chain. Needless to say, none of it is officially supported. The modules themselves aren't cheap. They differ depending on the brand of the ISP's router, and installation and configuration process is super technical, and after all that, there is no guarantee it'll even work. But hey, maybe that's an idea for a future video. Cheers!